In this video, we're going to be going back and looking once again at the NECA A Nightmare on Elm Street remake, Freddy Krueger and Fred Krueger. I initially did a review of these back in roughly around April of 2010, and I looked at both Freddy Krueger and Fred Krueger in independent videos, but I thought for this throwback we would go back and look at both figures in the same video. Now we are going to be looking at the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. Boo, hiss, boo, 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 hiss. Which I will go on record saying, this is where all the hate comments come, I will go on record saying that I actually quite enjoyed the remake of A Nightmare on Elm Street. I didn't actually like the remake of Friday the 13th, which I found was just kind of slowly paced, especially if you watch the director's cut. I found it just took forever for stuff to happen. Where I found, on the other hand, A Nightmare on Elm Street was fairly fast-paced, and I happen to like Jackie Earl Haley as Freddy Krueger. Boo, hiss, boo, hiss. All the more reason why I wanted to re-review these two figures, because I feel like just a lot of hate for this movie. It's not Robert Englund, and, you know, you could have not ever gotten another Nightmare on Elm Street movie. And I always believe to myself as well, like, when it comes to remakes, there will be some remakes that are crap. I admit that. But for those who are saying, oh, you know what, that remake sucks, blah, 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 you can always go back and watch the originals. That's my take on it. You can always go back and watch the originals. If Robert Englund never wanted to portray Freddy ever again, would you never want ever another Nightmare on Elm Street? They could have completely redesigned Freddy Krueger here, giving him completely a different look. Maybe he wore like a black parka, and maybe he had a mask that looked like a clown. And somebody would say, well, that doesn't look like Freddy Krueger. So there's no winning. There's no winning when it comes to fanboys and whatever it is that they're, and I get it. You're passionate about what it is. I'm passionate when it comes to horror movies as well. But you know what, though? There's always room to grow, and there's room, I think, to accept remakes as part of our culture. And if you don't like the remake, you can always go back and watch the originals. That's my standpoint. Gosh darn it, that's my standpoint. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next... No, I'm not. We're going to still look at the figures. So, here we have Jackie Earl's portrayal of Freddy Krueger. Hated by so many of the masses hated Jackie Earl's portrayal of Freddy Krueger. I liked him. I thought he was creepy. I liked his voice. When the guy says, you know, you're not real, I am now. Loved it. He was a little short as a Freddy Krueger, granted. You know, you had to film him certain ways. You couldn't film him next to the actual actors because, like, Jackie Earl's down here, regular actors, you know, he's a small guy, unfortunately. But I thought he did a great job as Freddy Krueger. Respectively so, I also thought he did a good job as Fred Krueger. But again, we're going to be looking at both figures. So why don't we start in this hate-filled, comment-ridden re-review when we first look at Fred Krueger. Now, funny enough, let's just bring the camera up here. Funny enough, these figures don't seem to stand at the same height. If we look at Fred Krueger, for example, Fred Krueger is about, what would you say, about 6 3/4 height. We look at Freddy, on the other hand, we'll take his hat off. Maybe it's just the hat that makes him look taller. I'm going to take the hat off here. He does look like he is visibly taller than Fred Krueger. Freddy Krueger stands actually closer to 7 inches tall. So you could chalk it up to the fact that Fred Krueger, I mean, some psychiatrists would say, well, you know, he has low self-esteem, so he doesn't present himself with an upright posture. He kind of slumps himself down. So maybe that would chalk up to why he's a little shorter by comparing him to Freddy. Freddy's, of course, commanding. He rules over Dreamland. So, you know what? It kind of warrants, I guess, why he's a little bit taller. Anyways, let's have a look at Fred Krueger. Now, Fred Krueger, probably not as much the popular figure as Freddy. Most people probably moved towards picking up a Freddy over a Fred Krueger. I actually picked up both, and I think that this is a really good sculpt for Fred Krueger, and equally so for Jackie Earl. Poor guy, got so much hate for this movie. He is wearing like a jacket, same slacks, and actually, funny enough, if you move this, and we did this in the initial review as well, if you move this out of the way, he is wearing his sweater. Although they didn't really take the time to paint all the stripes of the sweater, because you're really not technically going to see it. I only removed this slightly. I would not really entertain the idea of opening this completely, unless you really wanted to pose the figure with the sweater exposed. But again, you're really only going to get that top stripe as a visible stripe. Everything else is going to be like all red sweater. What you could always do too is, I guess you could swap the heads out, but again, his neck will be visible as Freddy's neck. The slacks, the boots, are exactly the same to the Freddy Krueger. Again, just with the rubber appliance of the jacket over top, and again, he's got some new sculpted arms. The head sculpt is really nicely done. For an older NECA figure, really done well. It's got more of a... It's hard to describe like older sculpted NECA and equally so McFarlane toy figures. They almost got more of a scratchier, a less smooth sculpt, if that makes any sense. But I think the head sculpt, though, is on par. It looks good. Paint's good as well on his hair. Making use of some lighter browns there as well. You can see all the individual hairs. Well, not literally all the individual hairs. That would be a lot of hairs to try to sculpt in, but you can see that the hair is sculpted quite nicely. Now, he does come with an accessory. He does come with his little garden rake thingamajigger. And you can have him displayed with that by simply just taking the hand, unplugging it from the socket, and you want to make sure you got it is the right hand. Just plug that into place, and you've got creepy groundskeeper, not groundskeeper Willie, groundskeeper Fred Krueger, which is, I guess, something else that a lot of people didn't like about the remake, was that it was so blatantly put in your face that he was a molester, or kind of he was just creepy. I like that. I don't know. I kind of like the fact that he, you see an upbringing where you see he's actually working at a school. You can see how he would have been exposed around children. And, again, there's that whole window of, did he really do it? Maybe he didn't really do it. They kind of go back and forth throughout the course of the movie, of course, till the end when they tell you what happened. But there's that whole, did Fred actually do all the things that the kids accused him of doing? And I kind of thought that was a neat enough angle. Maybe he was wronged by children that just made up stories and subsequently was burned alive. And of course, that would make that guy pretty angry. Seeking revenge, of course, thanks to the dream demons, seeking revenge on the kids that did him wrong. As for his posability, let's go through that together. His head does rotate all the way around on a ball joint. You've got a hinge joint on the shoulder, so at least that's good about. He is staction, staction. In other words, he's sculpted from the waist down. You can't do anything with the legs. I mean, you can do this with the boots, so I'll say that. But you do have the hinge on the arms. They rotate all the way around. He has a hinge and a rotation in the forearm, and a rotation in the hands, as well as creepy rake hand as well. And again, waist swivel. There's Fred Krueger. Not as interesting, notably so, not as interesting as Freddy Krueger, but I think still, for getting the one, I would say get the other as well. And all the more reason why we want to do both of these figures at the same time. Let's move on to Freddy Krueger. Here we go, Freddy Krueger. Again, he's not Robert Englund! I know he's not Robert Englund, but you know what? I think if this movie was created on its own, and it didn't have any previous movie to base itself from, I think actually the movie would have done well. And just too many people spent too long nitpicking the fact that it wasn't it wasn't Robert Englund donning the trademark fedora and wearing the striped sweater. It's not Robert Englund, so let's just dismiss everything. Now, if they again had made him completely different, maybe dressed him up like a penguin, they would say, oh, that's not what Freddy Krueger looks like. So again, you can't win. Just can't win. Again, like really nice depiction of Freddy, in my own honest opinion. He's got the red and green striped sweater, some little tears and rips and stuff like that in there, which I like. A good significant amount of damage right to the top there, around the collar area, and then respectively down by the bottom of the sweater, like the little rips and tears and stuff like that. You don't want a pristine sweater on a Dream Master. There's his face. One of two faces. It's entirely up to you which face you prefer. Both of them are horribly scarred, and I liked the design of Freddy. Again, really, really scary looking. You can remove his fedora. There we go. You can see that it's got some just kind of dusty wear to it. Like it looks like it's just been sitting for a while. It actually kind of looks like, but it's not. But it kind of looks like, but it's not. It kind of looks like a flocked. Like the hat has flocking to it. It doesn't though, but it does look like it does. It's also a softer plastic, so very easy to fit on his head. But there's his head sculpt. Again, a more natural, not that you would want to be looking at real scarred victims of fires, but it had a more, I would say, natural, that's such a horrible thing to say, like a natural, if somebody was burned, this probably be a little bit closer to what they would look like. Right down to the fact that his eyes just are these sunken in little dots. Scarring on his ears, nicely done. If you can call it ears, he's kind of really just missing them all. Again, stuff that burn victims, if you were heavily burned, and I'm not making light at all of heavily burned people, but you could see like stuff like ears and things like that would not really stick around. They wouldn't stay around for the rest of the show. But you've got a closed mouth. Again, sculpting on the face is good. Very minimal on the way of paint. They didn't really add a whole heck of a lot of paint on this. But again, Freddy Krueger from the remake doesn't really have an excess amount of darker, lighter tones to darker tones, kind of like Robert Englund's Freddy, which had very notable gapped areas where you could see like red versus the coloring of the flesh tone. Like there was a good contrast between the two. This is basically a very single colored application. If something a little bit more fiercer is your liking, he did also come with this head sculpt here, which again has now a little bit more of the ripped away flesh. Look at me! Just love it. And again, I don't know why everybody hated this movie. It was paced good. I thought the dream sequences were good. I like the fact that they established if you didn't sleep for a while, you would just have these little spurt sleeps where throughout the course of your day, you would be sleeping and not even aware of it. I like stuff like that. And again, I thought the design of Freddy was really cool. Just not really feeling it, I guess, from other people. Well, he sounded like Rorschach. Well, Christian Bale sounded like Batman in every movie. Everybody says, oh, they sound exactly, that's the actor. You wouldn't want Freddy just to come out and say, hi, I'm Freddy. No, you would want to give him like a more sinister, darker, grainier voice. And I thought Jackie Earl really nailed it. I love the little teeth there. Gross little slimy little cobs of, well, it's not even a cob, like little kernels of corn for his teeth. And that ripped away flesh on the side of his cheek. Love it. He's got a very large redesigned glove, which, funny enough, this is where somebody's going to say, really, this is what you find fault in? I'm going to put the hat on first before I get into my rant. Surprisingly, of all the things I don't like about the new design of Freddy, it wasn't his face. It wasn't the fact that he still makes use of the same sweater. I didn't actually like the design of the glove. There, I said it. How dare he? I said it. The only thing I don't like about the new glove is I didn't like the little straps of metal. Whereas I like the original if it was just a plate, just covering over here, just like one square plate like the old Freddy glove. These little strands, it just seemed to me like we're designing it just for the sake of... I guess they were trying to go with something that looked more like the actual bones of the fingers. Like if you were to tear away flesh on a hand, that's gross. If you were to tear that away, you would see all these little individual bones of the fingers, like this area right here. You'd see the bones. So I guess that's probably what they were trying to go with the glove. I didn't personally like it myself, but again, that's just my prerogative. I did like, though, the fact that the glove had these very large blades, menacing blades, not little thin butter knives. You had these big, beefy sized blades. You can see that they are covered with blood. Maybe from the dog, I don't know. But the glove looks really good. I love how it's got that little sculpt. I loved also when he went, he would just kind of play with the blades of his hands. So much hate. Let's run through his posability. His head is on a ball joint. Try not to pop the head off the socket in the process. His head is on a ball joint. Hinges on the shoulders. Rotation all the way around. A bend at the elbow. A rotation in the forearm. And a rotation in the hands. He has a ball joint in the torso. Completely statue from the waist down, other than the fact, much like Fred Krueger, he's got the ball joint in the feet so he can move the feet independently. That's how feet work. All in all, good looking figure. All in all, not a bad movie. All in all, haters are gonna hate. Haters gonna hate. Specifically, I wanted to do this video because I happen to really like these figures. I think I was actually at my comic book store the other day, and I noticed they had one lone Fred Krueger just sitting there. Nobody wanted it. And rightfully so. I think of the two figures, Freddy really is going to be the one that you would have gone with, unless, like myself, you just really wanted to get both of them hand in hand. But I think both figures do things really well. The sculpting on Freddy specifically is just really cool. Despite what you might think about the movie, I think everybody just wants to just shovel crap all over remakes. Like, this sucks. This isn't like the original. Well, you know what? You're never going to have the original. You can, unless you jump back in time and I guess maybe talk other people into making more Nightmare on Elm Streets. I mean, let's not forget, some of the later Nightmare on Elm Streets weren't all that good. Dream Child I like, but Freddy's Dead is disastrous. Especially the kid hopping up and down up on the stairs. The power glove, kind of lame, I have to admit. This movie had potential. This franchise could have seen a new series of sequels, but haters gonna hate. All the more reason why I want to do this video. Show some love for the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. Gosh darn it. Give it its due. Friday the 13th, not as good. Rightfully so. I just found the pacing was a little slow. But I did quite like the remake of Nightmare on Elm Street, and all the more reason why I wanted to look at these figures again. So, yeah. If you guys like this video, certainly hit it with a like. And surprisingly enough, I don't know if people dislike videos because they dislike the figures or they dislike the reviews. Because sometimes you see comments where it's like, I don't like this figure, and then you might see a dislike, and you think, are you disliking this figure or are you disliking the review? Because kind of strange. But anyways, if you guys like this video, certainly hit it with a like. If you haven't had a chance to subscribe to this channel, what are you waiting for? Hit that little subscribe button down below. You're good to go. And if you're a fan of Nightmare on Elm Street remake or the original, most people will usually go to the original, there's a whole playlist designated for you. You can see all the other Freddy reviews to your heart's content. No hate, just love. Just love. As always, guys, thanks for watching as you always do. See you next time.